I think it's safe to say that it's not exactly been the greatest of times for Zak Bagans, the Ghost Adventures superstar, and everyone's, I think at one point or another, favourite ghost hunter before kind of Ghost Adventures became very drawn out, very convoluted, and, you know, clearly just milking the cash cow all the way to the bank. But this isn't about Ghost Adventures. This all started when Zak Bagans broke up with Holly Madison, or Holly Madison broke up with Zak. And then she exposed some cheating, which then also led on to some other very, very serious claims with regards to alleged, and it has to be said that this is just alleged, minors getting involved. And, you know, it's become very messy. Now, all of these videos that you're about to see have already been released to the channel, but I wanted to compile it all together because, you know, people are still reaching out to me with their stories, okay? And it's worth, I'm paraphrasing because I don't know what's true and what's not. I'm working through it, trying to kind of get timelines together, get understandings together, get, you know, bits and pieces together to try and make sure that what I'm sharing is legit, because I'm not going to slander someone, right? If, like, with just any false story that comes through the door, because that's a very serious thing to do. You know, it has to be done with a bit of grace, a bit of decorum, not just for Zak, but also for the potential victims off the back of it, or, you know, the not necessarily victims, but people that were also involved within this, okay? So, you know, let it run in the background. It's probably going to be quite a long video, and just, I guess, enjoy the shit show that is Zak Bagans in 2025. Jesus Christ. Right, spook you in a bit. Get your teapots out, because I am bringing some tea today, as Zak Bagans has not only been accused of faking paranormal activity within Ghost Adventures, he's now been called out for faking himself in a relationship. And what I mean by that is he's alleged, you know, it's been alleged that he was cheating in his most recent relationship, as Holly Madison, his now ex, has called him out on social media, not even subliminally. She's just fucking gone balls to the wall and has just posted it everywhere. So, as you are probably well aware, TMZ get their dirty little mitts across absolutely everything, right? But Holly Madison over on her Instagram posted a couple of stories, and they've, you know, broken up for a couple of months now, maybe like 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. And Holly Madison's just like, fuck it, now's the time. I'm bored, let me just, you know, spill the tea. So she put up a social media post on Instagram stating, "It's a perfect day for me and not my ex, who I just found out was cheating on me with at least 3 other girls. Never too late to find out. Lol." Obviously her ex. Well, we assume that this is Zak Bagans, right? Considering they're fresh off the breakup. But, you know, she then doubles down on this with the follow-up post stating, "Wait, the count is now up to 4 girls and they all have major receipts. Let's see what the number gets up to by the end of the day. Feel free to place bets. I'll keep you posted." And then another one, "It's up to 5 girls now." And then another one. And then there was a naked guy in the Peppermill parking lot, never a dull day in Vegas. So obviously, you know, we all know who lives in Vegas and who's got a very haunted museum, allegedly, over in Vegas. None other than Mr. ZB himself, Mr. King of the Paranormal, self-proclaimed Zak Bagans. Spicy scenes. So, as you can imagine, it's a little bit messy. But Holly Madison has been spilling the tea and taking aim at Zak Bagans, claiming the television star has cheated on her in a couple of social media posts. But she also put this up on her TikTok. Now, there's a current trend going viral on social media where basically you say, "I'm bored, tell me da 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 da," and then, like, you know, you get people to like write stuff in the comment section. Well, Holly Madison did this. "My fantasy on board scenario would be the girls my most recent ex cheated on filling me in. I need the law." Oh god. Yeah, you can imagine that obviously this has started to stir the pot, and it basically confirms that it is none other than Zak Bagans, right? Because most recent ex, talking about Vegas, there is no two ways about it. She's just basically confirmed it without actually saying who it was. But obviously, partnered up with this, we've got the social media posts that I've just mentioned you about how, you know, it's now up. It was started out with 3 girls that he allegedly cheated on her with. Then it went up to 4. Now it's apparently gone up to 5 as of the most recent post. And then that was yesterday, I think these went out. Let me just double check this. Yeah, it was yesterday that these went out. So as of right now, apparently apparently Zak Bagans has cheated on his ex-girlfriend. I don't know why I'm laughing. It's not even funny. Cheated on his ex-girlfriend with up to 5 girls, allegedly. I mean, we all knew that Zak was a bit of like or liked to think of himself as a bit of a playboy by all accounts, right? But I mean, if you're in a relationship, it's just, you just don't do it. You just don't do it. It's such a doggy thing to do. But Zak and Holly, have been on and off for years before the breakup, so another split may seem like no big thing. But on a podcast a few days ago, after we broke up the news, Holly confirmed that they were done for good. They reached out to Zak and Holly's new social media posts, and he tells us, "We are on and off for 6 years, broke up multiple times, and we haven't spoken in 3 months. Wish her the best." So, obviously, that's what Zak said about the social media post, not confirming nor even denying that the allegations are true or false. And it sounds like there might be more to this breakup than we originally thought, though it seems like we will have to wait and see if Holly plans on saying more. I have no doubt, based off of these social media posts alone, that Holly will absolutely just, as soon as she gets any information, I reckon she'll just compile it and just put it out on social media, and it's going to light up like a Christmas tree, because people just very strongly dislike Zak. So I think just people, anyone who can get their mitts on this will absolutely spread it like wildfire. I mean, usually I try and keep to the paranormal stuff, but I don't know, I just find cheating to be a bit of a, it's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And, faking paranormal is one thing. You don't really, we expect that now. But cheating, whole different ballgame. Yeah, not much else to say about that right now. What do you guys think of the whole situation? Let me know. While we're here, though, I will take a look at the comments. So, here we go. So, these are things in the world that we will never fully understand. We want answers. This is my cheating adventures. I just don't buy it. The man has worked for years to build up his credibility, his reputation. Has he, though? Has he really? I never believed in cheaters until I came face to face with one. This is so good, man. This is so good. Did something scratch me? Good bot. We want answers. Guys won't hop on an aeroplane but will cheat with 5 women. Jesus. This is savage. So idiotic. It's orders of magnitude more dangerous to drive than it is to fly. And I naked man in the Peppermill parking lot. And one naked man, in the Peppermill parking lot. Oh my goodness. There's an old forum dating back to 2012. Someone posted, "It's wild. I won't fly, but he goes to different area codes. Is this why the seasons take so long to come out? Guys too busy driving around town banging." This is carnage. People love to dunk on Zak Bagans in his Reddit, I swear. There's a lot of cheating for this guy, never leaves one state. This is so true. Like, everyone that he's, allegedly cheated with must be in the Las Vegas area, because he doesn't leave. He won't fly, allegedly. At least for the show, he won't fly. Maybe behind the scenes, he actually is a frequent flyer. Can you imagine if that came out? Imagine if that came out, that he was just a frequent flyer and he was always, off on doing stuff. Zak will never turn this into another spin-off docu-series. We'll find a way to turn this into a spin-off docu-series. Naked and Afraid After Dark. Destinations of the Damned and Horny. Fuck's sake. People are too funny. People are too funny. I'm scared to travel, so I have all my hoes in one area code. Jesus. Oh, man. One person's question of, is sexuality. I mean, I'm not going to go there, because that's no. I had the biggest crush on him when I was 9 or 10. I don't know how I didn't notice he's a douchebag until you definitely looks like the type of guy that you'd have crying in a corner because he cheated on you and trying to gaslight you. Wow. This is carnage. Imagine fucking Baggins. Oh, man. Right, what do you guys think? Are you even surprised? I'm not. I'm truly not surprised. I always thought that, Zak saw himself as a bit of a playboy, so it comes as no surprise to me. But So there's Absolutely Cooked, and then you've got Zak Bagans. Now, Zak Bagans has been the centre of controversy, especially since his now ex, Holly Madison, broke up with him and then came out with some very damning allegations about him allegedly cheating behind the scenes. And it all came out after they broke up. She didn't know this was going on beforehand, but since they broke up, women have been coming out left, right and centre, and now apparently the cheat count is up to 10, allegedly, right? Now, obviously, Holly Madison says that there's loads of receipts to this and says that you know, everyone's come out and they all know all about it. But as of right now, we've not actually seen those receipts. So, you know, I like to work off of evidence. As much as I dislike Zak Bagans, you know, I like to work off of the evidence. But this is kind of to get you up to speed with everything thus far.
Some tea for you in the paranormal community. Holly Madison just posted about Zachy boy cheating on her, and as of this morning she found out that there's 7 people who came forward that he was with while he was with her. And I just want to say that when I had videos coming out about Zach, when the whole Dakota Layden thing went down and Nick Groff was coming at Zach, Holly was in all of these videos commenting, fighting for her man, saying nothing but the best things about him as a supportive girlfriend would. So to hear that he was pulling all of this douchebaggery shouldn't surprise me. But Holly girl, you know, you deserve so much better. You know this. You deserved so much better. And somebody in your comments under one of your videos here on TikTok put this. Somebody called Cupcake Barbie, awesome name by the way, on the T app, which of course I have downloaded and pending. We're not allowed to take screenshots. It's kind of like, are we dating the same guy? Like girls club only, right? Giving tea on guys. About him saying he brings them to the museum, as in the haunted museum, and turns off the licensee of spirits to approve of them. Oh God, like if that's not the cringiest first date ever, I don't know what is. But Holly, you know.
Can you imagine, like, hooking up with Zak Bagans and you think it's a great time, take him back to the Haunted Museum and you're like, oh, all right, it's a bit of a saucy location for the first date. All for him to just be like, spirits, do you approve? I don't know why he's Scottish, by the way. I don't know why he suddenly becomes Scottish when he takes girls back to the Haunted Museum. But imagine, like, that, and then you're just like, then what happens if a spirit doesn't approve? How does he know? To boot him out? Do they become part of the museum? Like, what happens? It's a weird one. But yeah, I mean, that's so Zach. But I actually truly believed up until this point that Zach didn't believe the bullshit that we were putting out on Ghost Adventures. But not only do I now think that he believes it, I think he just wholeheartedly lives it and thinks that genuinely everything that he puts out is actually legit. It's a weird one. But Holly Madison has not stopped. So the count is up to 10, allegedly. There's now 10 girls that apparently he was cheating on Holly Madison with at the time. Now, I'm not going to, say that Holly Madison was a saint, because there is, by all accounts, reports of her also doing some shady shit behind the scenes when they were together. So she's not exactly an innocent party in all this. Don't get it twisted, all right? Like, she apparently was just as bad as old Zachy boy. But, that's, again, by the by. But she put a tweet out saying, all this information I'm finding out is so disturbing. And what's really interesting about this is that Dakota Layden, who obviously has been really quiet as of late, just put the side-eye emojis on a retweet to this. So obviously, he knows what the score is. He knows that something's going down. But Holly Madison has been pretty active over on her social medias, especially talking about Zak Bagans and, about the cheating scandals that he's been down with. And this is her over on her TikTok.
You guys, men will lie about anything on dating apps. And I know this isn't exactly breaking news, but I've been broke up with a guy for a little bit, but I'm only just now finding out that over the 6 years we were together, he cheated on me with like 10 people. At least that's where the count is right now. I'm sure there's probably so many more. But somebody sent me a screenshot of his dating app profile. I knew he was on dating apps. That's like a big part of the reason we broke up in the first place when I found that out. But I mean,
that's messed up, isn't it? If you're in a committed relationship, why are you on a dating app? Like, it, again, makes no sense.
I'm saying I'm just now finding out the specifics of like who he cheated with and how many. So this is a guy who told me all the time, like, I never want to have kids, almost to the point where it seemed like a phobia with him. And he didn't just tell me that, because since I've been finding all this out, Like, I connected with this girl he dated for like 8 years before me, and it was the same with her, even to the point where he suggested to both of us that we get our tubes tied. And I remember when he said that to me, I'm like, why don't you just get a vasectomy? And that shut him up real fast. And I mean, shut him up to the point where like he didn't even answer me, like just went quiet. Okay, whatever.
I mean, like, that's borderline misogyny to a degree. Like, I'm not going to say that Zak Bagans is an absolute misogynist, because it's not my place to say. But, you know, when men are like, oh, yeah, women should just get their tubes tied instead of men getting a vasectomy, for example, like, what like, right do you have to tell a woman that they should get their tubes tied because you don't want to be a parent? Like, if that's a you thing, then you deal with it, you know? You deal with it. If they're the ones that don't want kids, then yeah, sure, they deal with it. But because then, if a woman gets her tubes tied, I know that you can. I believe it's reversible. Is it reversible? I think it is reversible, right? But if a woman gets her tubes tied, like Holly Madison, if she actually went through with that, she now would not be able to have kids at all, right? Unless she went through a further procedure to then get her tubes untied. Like, that's mad. It's mad. Like, I would find that insulting as a woman.
But on this dating app, and also he said on Twitter before, like, somebody asked him what his biggest fear was, and he said having kids. But on the dating app, because he wants to get as many people as possible interested in him, in the section about babies, it says, not sure yet. Bro, are you kidding me?
So yeah, Holly Madison on the forefront, trying to expose Zak Bagans. But like I've said, right, there's been a lot of accusations about all of these women that he allegedly cheated with, and we didn't have any information on it until now. So there is a YouTuber, TikToker, Instagram influencer by the name of Phantomette, right? Now, Phantomette's known for her paranormal investigations and her saucy content, right? Spicy content. If you don't know what spicy content is, I don't know how to put it PG and keep this video monetized. OF content. Lewd. Yeah, you know where I'm going with it. But, you know, she creates this kind of content, right? And that's her thing. Well, apparently, she's come out in a story stating that she was one of the girls that Zak hooked up with when he was in a relationship with Holly Madison. Now, she claims not to know that they were in a committed relationship at the time of them kind of hooking up. I think they hooked up. But yeah, she's come out in a 5-minute TikTok video to expose the tea.
To say some things that may upset some people, but if it helps even one girl avoid a situation that she might not want to be in, then I feel like I've done my job. I previously made a post and I already see the Ghost Adventures fans in the comments saying, this could never be true. And it's totally understandable that you don't want to believe your idol could be less than perfect. By all means, you can still enjoy your favorite ghost hunting show just the same as you did before, but the person who you were watching can also be capable of doing some fucked up things. Holly and Zak dated for years and clearly he was severely disloyal to her. Within the last few days, she's received numerous stories that I can't imagine reading about somebody that I thought I knew. But I'm just here to tell you what I can of my story to confirm what Holly is saying is in fact true. I was seeing Zak for a short period of time starting in early 2023. I had posted an EVP that I captured at the Haunted Museum in Las Vegas, which is where I live, and Zak responded to my story. Being in the paranormal world myself, I was surprised he actually responded and was quite skeptical at first. That was until he started sending voice messages, and I was like, oh wow, it's really him. He eventually invited me one evening to the museum, and of course, what paranormal enthusiast wouldn't turn down that opportunity? Once I headed that way, he told me to meet him over at the Black House next to the museum. On my end, I did not think this was going to be a date-like scenario. When I showed up, I shook his hand like it was a business meeting. But as the night went on, that changed. One small detail that gives just a little glimpse into the level of deception that we're dealing with here is the fact that he took it upon himself to make a comment about how crazy it was that we were hanging out, because he never hangs out with people and this is super out of the ordinary for him, which of course set the precedent that there was no other girls on his radar and that I was special. But boy, was I wrong.
How messed up is that, by the way? How messed up is that? To make someone feel like they are, like, that kind of special, that they are the only person in the world that, you know, is so manipulative, right? If it's true, of course, right? And I have to state, and I have to premise, for the sake of fairness, I guess, you know, everything right now is alleged. There's no proof to back it up. You know, everyone's coming out and saying things happened. Now, I believe Phantomette's story, but, you know, is there evidence to corroborate at right now? No. But maybe one day there will be evidence to corroborate, and, you know, then, you know, there'll be more evidence to support it.
Now, of course, some may say that's okay. He's not married. He can do what he wants. And of course he can. But then you add in the fact that at this time he was officially dating Holly. After lining up our timelines, they were actually together that very day when I met him at the Black House.
That's shady.
Now, add in another 9 confirmed girls, and by confirmed, I mean with solid receipts, including texts from his number, parking passes to his neighborhood, pictures inside his house, and now we have ourselves a little problem. There's also numerous girls claiming to have matched with him on dating apps, and we're not even counting those. I had no idea he was still dating Holly. After some time, I began to have suspicions that she was still in the picture. When I brought up my suspicion to Zach, he started freaking out and became irate on the phone. He denied that it was true and told me that I needed to mind my own business.
Again, if this is true, right, and I have to say that for the sake of, well, also not getting sued, that's so manipulative. To, like, get called out for something that you know is probably wrong, and then to, like, have a go at that person to intimidate them and to try and shut them down, that is scummy. So manipulative, so scummy. What the fuck?
So I did, but I kept an eye out for other signs as we continued on, and again, I began to see more red flags, so that's when I cut it off. I still wasn't 100% sure because I didn't have any tangible evidence, so I didn't think reaching out to Holly would be the best idea. Also, her platform is very large, and I didn't think she would even see my message if I did send one. When I say overlap, I mean quite literally we would be seeing him at his house on the same day. And that, my friends, is some disgusting teenage boy behavior. There are more details that I hope I can eventually share with you guys, but just have patience because there's a lot going on behind the scenes, and this seems to be a developing case because there's more details that I wasn't even aware of that are starting to surface, and whew. Now, Zach, I'm sure this may come across your desk, and I just want to make it very clear that Holly has done nothing wrong by finding out about all of this. I have done nothing wrong by telling my story. There are no accusations here or defamation of character because everything I've stated is a fact and it can be proven if need be. I hope this situation holds a mirror up to your face so you can see that there's really only one bad guy here. I hope this is a wake-up call because this kind of behavior is so childish and vile. One day I think you'll look back when you're a little older and can't get girls the way you used to and think, man, I really fumbled Holly Madison. I always try to find the silver lining in bad situations, and the only one here is the fact that I had the blessing of being able to speak with Holly and exchange stories because that's a good woman right there. With that being said, there truly are things in this world that we will never fully understand.
I mean, it's damning, right? It's damning. Zach is cooked. Like, the guy is absolutely cooked. He fumbled the bag with Holly Madison. How the fuck do you manage that? And now everyone's coming out the woodwork. Now, interestingly, what's even crazier to this is the fact that Nick Groff, right, former co-star to Ghost Adventures, kind of Zach's 2IC for a period of time, came out with a comment off the back of this and said, that's just scratching the surface. He's been doing this for years. It's much darker. I've tried to warn people for a long time, and now I know firsthand experiences of darker things that he has done. Damn, that is shady. Now, I will say, before we round out this video, I have been sent some stuff off the back of creating videos based off of what's been going on, right? I need to verify it. and vet it before I'm gonna, show it to people, because, that's just how due diligence works, and that's how I need to do my job. But if what I've received is true, we're like talking beyond just faking paranormal stuff, cancelling people and cheating. We could potentially be talking about some very serious legal stuff, right? That could actually, in the court of public opinion, and also in a legal court, could find Zak Bagans genuinely in a lot of hot water. And that's why it's taken me so long to kind of even mention it. I trust the source of where it's come from. I know for a fact that that's, solid. They vetted it and they say that it's legit. I need to do a little bit more background work just to make sure that what I've got before I put it out there is legit. But my goodness, if it is, seriously, it is really messed up. When I saw it, I felt my blood boil. That's how, angry I was based off of the evidence that I'd received. My goodness, it's bad. But ultimately, we're going to talk about what we've got at hand here. What do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. It seems to go beyond this whole idea of a petty ex-partner. There's proof. Well, it definitely seems as if the floodgates have opened for Zak Bagans, because, well, off the back of the videos that I've been making thus far, kind of covering the Holly Madison expose stuff where she talks about him cheating, right? A lot of people have come forward to myself in confidence and said, this is my story with Mr. Bagans. And some people don't like the way I say it. Some people are like, well, it's Zak Bagans, it's Zak Bagans. I say Zak Bagans because I was told that's how it was. I don't know. But I think that's by the by at this point, right? But I've been sent a couple of videos of another person who has allegedly, had some run-ins with Zak Bagans when he was with Holly Madison. And I've also been sent a list from a site of people who have basically shared their disgruntled stories of themselves with Zak Bagans, dating as far back as 2014. So, and I mentioned in my last video that there was some information that I had been sent with regards to Zak, which was very shady. Based off of the information that I've got, everyone's story aligns perfectly with the kind of behaviour that they would experience from Zak. And I'm not going to say it yet because I still need to, dot the I's and cross the T's, but it's not good. It's not good at all. It's actually absolutely disgusting. And, we're talking some very, very serious things that could land with evidence Zak in a lot of hot water. Now, of course, I have to state, everything's alleged right now. People are coming out, yes, with evidence and stuff like this, but, for the sake of not getting sued, I'm going to say everything's alleged right now. But it's not a great look. So let's start with the stories, right? So I was sent this website over from let's call it a reliable source, okay? And they sent this and stated it's basically a website where people share their stories of things. But if you take a little look here, stories of women with Zak Bagans. It is never ending. All of these women have come out with their stories with Zak, right? All of these. Now, I haven't read them all. And of course, it's easy to make accusations. So in the interest of fairness, we'll have to say that we have to take everything that we hear with a pinch of salt, all right? But, yeah. Anyway, this one is the furthest back that I could find. It was from 2014, right? And it's from someone called Ashley L. on February 17th, 2014. So they stated, "Hey guys, my friend recently told me about this website and I have to say I'm pretty disgusted with Zak. I am a recent hookup of his from Twitter. I would have known what I know now. I wouldn't have got involved with him. I can't believe I was fooled by him. Now my eyes are finally open. I am from Vegas and I'm a full-time student at UNLV. I have been a fan of Ghost Adventures for a little over a year, so I knew who Zak Bagans was. I always had a tiny crush on him. I love the fact that he was in charge, but at the same time he seemed so sweet and caring. One afternoon, I decided to tweet Zak about how he influenced me to start juicing again. To my surprise, he retweeted me. On Friday, I decided to tweet him again as I was watching Ghost Adventures. I was in shock when he actually DM'd me. He said he didn't have many UNLV fans, so told me to hit him up over his email. I emailed him a few times telling him that it was my 21st birthday, etc. And he quickly gave me his number, telling me to text him. One of the first things that he told me was that he didn't do this very often, DMing and texting girls over Twitter. He was very sweet and even calling me and wishing me a happy birthday. While on the phone, he was warning me about the dangers of going out into Vegas, telling me to be careful and stuff. By this time, I was sold that the man was sweet and caring, basically everything I thought he was going to be. Little did I know that he was setting me up to use me. All of this happened when he was in LA shooting the first part of his movie and doing a lockdown. Since he wasn't going to be around in Vegas, he told me I could text or call him whenever I wanted. He was very attentive and texted me right back almost every single time. Given the facts, I assumed I was the only girl that he was talking to at the moment. He would always ask me to send him pictures and videos throughout the day. I sent him a photo of me one morning and he texted back saying, "I love waking up to this." I told him maybe we could wake up to my face in person one morning. He responded with, "That would be even better." He even promised me that I could attend his movie premiere with him. One last day in LA, he called me to tell me he wanted to take me out to dinner for my late birthday present when he got back to into Vegas the next day. At dinner, he got to talk about ghosts and he was telling me about his dungeon. I told him I wanted to see it, so he offered to give me a tour. When he was showing me the dungeon, we started making out. Then he told me to go upstairs. That was the first night that we had sex. After that night, the sweet and caring Zak that I knew completely vanished. He didn't text back for a couple of days. Just when I would start to get pissed off at him, he would use his charm and reel me back in. The only time that he would text or call was when he wanted me to come over to have sex. I became frustrated when he would blow me off or call me only to have sex, so I started questioning him. He gave me the old tired excuse that he was very busy with Ghost Adventures and other projects. He would get me every time with his charm and sweet words. A few days later, he would turn back into a douche. One night, he wanted me to sleep over. I couldn't because I had a test the next day. He seemed fine with it, telling me that he hopes that I get an A on the test. I continued to text him throughout the night, and he even sent me a picture. Here's the big shocker. I get a text on my phone later that night from a girl saying that she was with him and to leave him alone. I couldn't believe that he would text me while he was with someone else. I confronted him and he basically ignored it. I was so mad that I told my friend what had happened and she told me about this website. I just want to come here and share my story. I'm not trying to hate on Zak or anything like that. I already moved on from him when we don't text or talk anymore. If you don't believe me, I will provide proof of the DM and various texts and emails we sent. I hope that some ladies read my story and do not make the same mistake. Don't fall for the sweet guy ways because he's only an act. Once he gets what he wants, he will treat you like shit. I wish I'd never met Zak Bagans. I actually really wish I would have seen this site before I decided to tweet him. Don't let him use you, ladies. Stand up to him and don't fall for anything he says. Now, based off the fact that this was back in 2014, and obviously this is now 11 years later, right now. In fact, it's over 11 years later now. The same recurring behaviours seem to be happening because I've spoken to a few people now, right, with regards to Zak's behaviours towards them when they were, like, you know, getting into the, like, hookup phase, and it was incredibly similar. Everything, to a T, is the exact same. They would go over, they would do things, he'd blow them off, job done, right? And, you know, he'll only call them over when he wanted something, allegedly, right? But then I stumbled across, well, I was sent this video. I'm not going to name any of the sources that I've spoken to or anything like that because I don't know if they want to be shared. And of course, you know, this is pretty serious stuff. So yeah, just take a little listen to this.
All right, well, I'm going to try and do this with no cuts. And as well as I can. First few disclaimers is this does involve my last video that I posted a few hours ago, and the contents of this video are going to be rather disturbing. And by disturbing, I mean that they involve me as a minor talking to Zach, who is not a minor, obviously.
Now, obviously, this is where things take quite a shift, because cheating is one thing. People say people cheat all the time. Why do we care? Well, this is why I was so keen to kind of like talk about what's gone on, because it paints a picture of what's gone on. But then I've heard stories, and they are just stories, I have to say, of this being the case. Right, and I didn't know whether to believe it or not, so I had to kind of, do a bit of background research before I start making some very bold assumptions and very bold claims against someone who is obviously in a position of power and influence and financial power, right, who could literally, without even batting an eye, destroy my life, okay? So that's why I wanted to be really, really thorough in my research before making these serious claims, but this video, kind of says what I wanted to say, or what I've heard.
While I was a minor. The contents of the messages, unfortunately, I cannot share the direct screenshots, as TikTok will take my video down. All I can share is that he does indeed have me blocked. I've gotten cease and desist from him.
Wow.
And I have tried to speak about this almost 3 years ago in 2022. All of my videos were taken down for community guideline violations. I had gotten a cease and desist in the mail. I had him literally stalking my social media. It was rather scary, and add on top of that, his massive fan base coming at me, calling me a liar, telling me to off myself, sending me death threats, the whole 9 yards. With that being said, at the advice of my lawyer, and to keep me legally safe, I have to say that while these come from his official Twitter account, I have to say that they're alleged claims. But again, I will emphasize that these came from his official Twitter account. The cease and desist came from his team, okay? Actual legal documents that I have still.
Now, it's really such a shame that someone like this, who's been through an experience like what they're describing, right? And while they were a minor, has to claim for legal sakes, whilst it's in the process of being dealt with, has to say that their experiences were only alleged. Just that, don't take that, right, and think that completely discredits everything. That is a very carefully, legally, binding move. And their lawyers, this person's lawyers, are clearly, stating, you need to do this to avoid any legal fallout before things take action, right? And it's such a shame, because a lot of people will hear that and be like instantly like, no, that discredits you. You're not being honest in what you're talking about. That's not exactly the case, ladies and gentlemen. You just, in the world of law and politics and financial, but with someone as powerful as Zak Bagans, he will do absolutely anything and everything to maintain his reputation, to keep himself squeaky clean, and also, potentially keep himself out of prison. If it goes that far, and if these can be proved to be legit. And I have to say alleged as well. And that doesn't mean that I'm discredited. It just means that I don't want to get sued either. So, yeah.
Again, this video has no cuts. I may get choked up a bit or not know what to say, because it's still hard to process. So, this all started at the end of 2015, going into 2016. I was a huge fan of Ghost Adventures ever since the 5th grade. Zach was not my favorite. And I'm cope laughing to deal with it. However, I still did find him to be attractive, alluring, whatever you want to call it. And I did look up to him. It's hard for me now at 23 to even stomach the fact that I'm making this video again, and the fact that I know for a fact that this has happened to other people. So anyways, into 2015 and into 2016, so I was 14 at the time. Nothing really seemed off. I would get notices on Twitter. It is what it is. Just him interacting with fans, I kind of brushed it off. The first DM I got with him was in June of 2016, and I was 15.
Now, I know that the age of consent is very different depending on where you are, but it is never younger than 16, and I think it's worth noting that because people like to kind of twist this narrative that, you know, oh, they were legally of age, yes, it morally isn't right, but, you know, they're not breaking the law. No, 15 is underage, right? The age of consent is 16. The age of consent in most places is 18. Well, I think in the UK it's 16. Most places are 16. A lot of places are 18 as well, though. But, you know, it's worth bearing that in mind.
Again, these messages are graphic. Believe me or don't, I don't care. The first message, and I remember exactly where I was when I got it, but the first message I ever got was asking me if I felt comfortable sharing nudes with him. And when I say the first message, I mean like the first sexual message. There was a hi, a hey, a small talk, whatever. I thought nothing of it. The first sexual message I got, though, was in June 2016, and it was asking if I would be comfortable sharing nudes. I shared with him that I was not comfortable with doing that, as I was 15. He then tried to guilt trip me into sending them, saying that they wouldn't be shared with anybody else, they wouldn't be seen, they were safe with him, and that it was disappointing because I was a huge fan of his. Just saying those words make me want to vomit as it is.
Like, those words actually make my blood boil. Genuinely, like, when I heard about stuff like this was before I'd even seen this video. I'd heard of things like this, right? Allegedly. And it is a similar pattern of behaviour, you know, this manipulation into saying, well, I am me. You know, you're my biggest fan. You're such a big fan of me and you won't do this for me? To manipulate and use that power of influence to get what you want off of anyone that you want is fucking sick, and it is wrong. Yes, these are alleged claims, right? But they seem to, you know, people are coming out of the woodworks a lot more now than they were about 2 weeks ago. The whole Holly Madison situation has really, really blown the lid off this. And fuck me, is it bad? And it boils my blood to think that someone's using that kind of influence to, you know, manipulate potential minors into sending stuff, right? Yeah, I don't, like, people will always defend people, right? If you know, and in the context of this, people always defend Zak Bagans because they are diehard Ghost Adventures fans. They can never do this, even if the proof came out, even if, like, you know, things happened and he, like, was, you know, punished for this. People would still say this never happened. You know, Zach has been wrongly accused and all the rest of it. Yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Because of how manipulative that statement is. And it just goes to show the power imbalance that is there. Because as a young kid who idolizes people, you don't want to disappoint your idols. At least I didn't. Maybe it's different for other people. The messages continued into July, and those messages included him asking to fly me out, to which I said that I was not comfortable doing as I had never flown by myself, and I was only 15. I reiterated
So again, I know I keep pausing it and I do apologise, but this is again something else that I've heard from multiple people, is that people aren't just from Vegas. He's offered to fly people out to Vegas to him, to kind of, get what he wants out of them, essentially. Yeah.
several times that I was 15. I never flew out. I never met up with him. Something in my brain was just like, this is not okay. This is not right. The messages continued, however, again, begging me for nudes, saying if I was really a big fan that I would do it. And it's just very difficult for me to still process, and I'm trying to keep some of these emotions at bay and make this as clear as possible. July of 2016 rolls around, and I had met one of his previous co-workers, co-stars, whatever you want to call them. And I had that as my profile picture in July. I had met them in April. Zach knew that I had met them in April, as we had a disagreement over it, and he was saying some things. That's neither here nor there. Not my story to tell in regards to what happened there and between those two people. However, in July is when he sent me a very rude message, a very hostile message. He was very angry with me. As I was interacting with him on the timeline, I had the profile picture, and he literally said, and I quote, "You have to pick sides, you can't have both." I decided at that moment that this was toxic. It was not okay. I was uncomfortable. And so I cut ties. I told him that I was not going to give up supporting somebody else that I have also loved since the 5th grade because of him. I was not comfortable with that, and I was blocked. The messages, though, happened from June 2016 until July 2016. So a full month of him trying to fly me out, talking sexually, begging me for nudes, trying to guilt trip me into sending them to him. If anything, I hope that this video reaches the pages of those other victims that I'm sure are out there, and that I hope maybe it gives some courage for other people to speak. I do not want followers, I do not want money, I do not want engagement in that way, as I would like to wash my hands with this man completely and move on with my life and continue to heal. I'm literally diagnosed with PTSD from it, depression, anxiety, and I go to therapy 2 times a week because of this. So, hope that's as clear. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them if I can legally.
So, I'm trying to keep my emotions out of it, right? Because, obviously I've got a lot that I would love to say and just sound off about, but, it's not my place to do so. But it is worth noting as well that, this is coming from a person who, by the age of 15, clearly had a very sensible head on their shoulders, allegedly, based off of all of the alleged evidence and alleged facts, right? Allegedly. Have to say it. But you can easily see how people of that age, who maybe haven't matured in that capacity yet, could be very easily influenced into doing that because, wow, it's Zach. You know, I've been watching him on TV since I was in the 5th grade. He's him. Like, I've idolized this person and he's asking for this from me. And I'm special enough to be asked of this, and I'm such a big fan, and he's telling me that because I'm such a big fan that the least I can do for him in return for his work is do this. You can see how the mindset can go and how the manipulation can really kick in, allegedly, if this is true, right? Now, yeah, it's messed up, and this does corroborate with a lot of stuff that I'm hearing now. And it does corroborate with a lot of stuff that is, you know, going on behind the scenes and has gone on behind the scenes potentially for over a decade. Now, we've obviously seen public comments from Nick Groff and Dakota Layden, both kind of corroborating the, you know, the allegations that are being made, knowing that they know things that are going on behind the scenes and stuff like this, and it is damning. And I am talking to people who are, you know, in connection with Zach at one point or another, that are telling me some very, very crazy things. So, yeah, it's not looking good. Obviously, you know, no hate to the alleged victims, regardless of whether you believe them, whether you don't believe them, because, you know, we weren't there, right? I wasn't there, so I can't, like, say hate on this person, or, you know, fuck this person or fuck that person, and neither can you, alright? So please be respectful of all parties involved, because we don't know what the truth is, but this is what is being presented in front of us, so that's why I'm covering it. Unsurprisingly, it's another day and it's more drama and controversy, especially surrounding our good friend Zak Bagans. Although today, he's not directly involved in any capacity, but it's people standing up for him and people speaking out against him, and, you know, basically in a turmoil from within the paranormal community, kind of butting heads with some pro-Zak fans and some anti-Zak fans, right? And they're kind of butting heads at the moment. And it's kind of being spearheaded by some of the leading paranormal investigators from the TV industry and from the paranormal side of TV, right? So, you know, I've already gone over some drama that's happened recently with regards to Amy Bruni and also Nick Groff, right? And in extension, Tessa Groff, okay? So Amy put out a tweet not too long ago basically stating that, you know, Zach can't be blamed for cancelling shows single-handedly. You know, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. She apparently has worked but with the networks and stuff, and, you know, it's all kind of sparked from that, and that's how it's all kind of come about. Now, yesterday, at the time of recording, Amy Bruni posted to her Twitter stating, quote-unquote, I'd really love, if stories of sexual predation would stop emerging from people in the paranormal field. Gross, dudes. Now, that obviously is a post that can be, you know, determined in one of two ways. It's either she's saying, and this is where I feel like, for the sake of fairness, I have to say, you know, like the two ways that this could be interpreted, because I interpret it one way to begin with, but it's either she's saying that people need to stop calling out people for sexual predation within the paranormal field, or she's stating that people who are doing this need to stop. Now, it's a bit of a grey area. It's hard. She didn't really clarify too much regarding where she kind of stands with regards to this, but obviously it can be interpreted one of two ways. So, I mean, I did respond to this, and I said to ignore it is to contribute to the problem. To be fair, using manipulation to get your own way with someone is gross. And that is stuff that we have seen with regards to, you know, allegedly, with regards to Zak Bagans recently, or Zak Bagans, however you want to say it, right? Where people are coming out and speaking out against him, okay, for multiple different reasons. One person even claimed to be a minor over on TikTok. I've already covered that on a video, but obviously, you know, it's a very messy situation, and, you know, if it is true, then it's absolutely disgusting. But if it's not true, then obviously those are some allegations that could ruin a career. So, you know, we have to be careful with the allegations that get thrown around, and, you know, the way that things are worded, because ultimately, you know, this could swing one of two ways. So, you know, we obviously haven't heard from Zak. I highly, highly doubt we will hear from Zak. But in the interest of fairness, obviously we need to try and, you know, keep it on the fence for now at least. Obviously the information coming out is serious, but and it should be taken at face value, and it should be, you know, pushed and investigated, because I think to kind of sweep this kind of behaviours under the rug is, you know, if you know about a problem, safeguarding, one of the first things you learn as a teacher, right, which was what I was for a period of time, the first thing you learn is safeguarding is everyone's problem. If a child, if an adult, if a vulnerable adult, if anyone comes to you with a problem, right, and you're aware of it, to not do anything or act on that information appropriately, right, to a degree, you're somewhat complicit within what's going on, because you have the means to go to someone who can deal with it appropriately, and they can deal with it appropriately, right? So if this information comes out and people just choose to keep it quiet, don't want to upset anyone, I don't want to upset the bigwigs, I don't want to upset people that can boost my career potentially, you know, sweep it under the rug, you're playing into the problem. You're part of the problem. It's, you know, you shouldn't ignore these kinds of things, regardless of who it is, right? And, you know, people get intimidated by that, and it's not something that people should be intimidated by. Anyway, moving forwards, that's a little side note that I feel quite passionate about this topic, because there's been a lot of times in my professional career as a teacher where, you know, safeguarding was a problem for some people that I had to deal with, right? And, you know, you have to handle it appropriately, and it's just ingrained in me. So when I see, like, potentials where people are like choosing to sweep stuff under the rug, gets on my nerves. Anyway, moving forwards, many people like have put down in the comments, obviously one person here, it's the same in horror fiction, sadly, obviously exists in the realm where men are allowed to roam freely, but they seem to love to fester and hunt with the niche communities and prey on those who seek a connection with like-minded folks. And then Amy responded this, absolutely so disheartening. Now, I don't know, I don't know where the finger's being pointed with regards to this. Someone responded, what happened? Just hearing multiple stories about multiple people in the paranormal, it's getting old. Now, I mean, I want to be as balanced as possible, but obviously, you know, in that sense, if allegations are old, right, and they're coming out from 10, 15 years ago, it shouldn't matter. There shouldn't be a time frame on allegations, because obviously, you know, ultimately they are allegations, and that has to be, you know, taken into consideration. But at the same time, you need to kind of like allow people to speak, right? Otherwise, we never would have known about the likes of Jimmy Savile, for example. We wouldn't have known about the likes of Jeffrey Epstein, for example, right? Because people were too intimidated to come out before. So, but now, fortunately, they've been able to come out, and these people who were well loved in life, you know, the true spotlight's been pointed on them. I'm not, please don't get me twisted though, I'm absolutely not putting Zak Bagans in a bracket with Jimmy Savile, all right? Like, that's absolutely not the case. It was just an example, you know, of allegations coming out. Anyway, before anyone gets the wrong idea, Dakota Layden obviously retweeted this as well with the side-eye emoji. Now, I don't know if he's backing Amy or if he's, you know, kind of being like, what's this about kind of thing. But Tessa Groff is someone who was very outspoken with regards to this. So she retweeted this stating, "You can't say the situation is gross after going out of your way to write an entire post defending the guilty person last week. That's just called backtracking, and it's pathetic. You know exactly who he is and what he's capable of, yet defended him anyways. That is gross." Amy responded to this, stating, "This is the final time I'm responding to this. I didn't defend anyone. I didn't even use those exact words. I even used those exact words. I was trying to point out the industry-wide unemployment in all of reality television. You can continue to try to twist my words if you like, but it doesn't change what my intention was. I truly wish you guys the best of luck in any projects that you're working on. You seem to have a lovely family, and I hope things continue to grow well for you. Cheers." Tessa responded, your wording was, quote, I get exhausted by the rumour that Zak B had the paranormal shows cancelled because A, that's not how television works, and B, it's just plain wrong. That's false and you know it. You continue to allude to, quote unquote, know things behind the scenes about paranormal lockdown or why it was cancelled. So the only person twisting or manipulating is you. No one is fooled. You can suck up to whoever you want. Doesn't make anyone in the industry like you more. And thank you for all the well wishes. Just try minding your own business next time. And then Amy puts up this from her initial tweet and highlights this part, stating, support your favourites in the independent projects and productions, that's it. No amount of crying to the network will change things, but please stop suggesting that one person took everything that we loved and worked for years and shut it down, because he didn't. And I'm not saying this to defend Zak, I'm saying this to defend ourselves and educate you. This is industry-wide, not just paranormal TV, and thousands of people are struggling with having their jobs and livelihoods taken away, essentially, right? Tessa responds, and again, no one was talking about you. No one person spoke about kindred spirits, and you knew Nick well enough to know what really went on. You're an ass kisser to whoever you think will get you a job, and then you backstab people. It's not cute. And then people kind of coming back on this and saying, you know, so sick of all the public bullshit and all the rest of it. Now, obviously it's very heated right now, to say the very least, right? You've got a lot of people saying a lot of different things, a lot of people coming out of the woodworks to state, you know, their stories, right? And someone in my comment section made a very true and honest point recently. They put out a video, they left a comment on my video that I put out stating there's always three sides to things. There's their story, the truth, or my truth, their truth, the truth, right? Which is so true, because both sides of the party, or the story, have their truth, but then there's ultimately what actually happened, which is the truth. And then obviously, you know, stories can mishmash and come together, but ultimately, without having the actual proof, we can't point fingers specifically at anyone. Of course, the allegations coming out are damning, but without the, you know, smoking gun evidence right now, which, you know, apparently people do have. So we have to just hope that those things do come out, because then we'll get the full picture and, you know, the right people can be, you know, dealt with appropriately. And it has to be done appropriately, right? Because no amount of finger pointing, allegations, name dropping, he said, she said, will fix things, right? It has to be done appropriately. But there is one thing that we've learned as a race, is that people in positions of power sometimes need pressure to do the right thing. Sometimes they don't always do the right thing, but, you know, let's hope that if these people have been wronged, they get the justice that they deserve. And if Zak's been wronged, then let's hope that he gets the justice he deserves, right? Because ultimately those are some serious allegations coming out. But, you know, silence is deafening. Let's put it that way. What do you guys think, though? I'm very curious to see your thoughts and opinions on this. Obviously, I know that Zak's a very divisive figure. I know that, well, everyone in the paranormal is a very divisive figure. Some people love some people hate some people. And that's fine. You choose your allegiances. But ultimately, you know, let's just hope that whatever is the actual truth does come out. With all the allegations that are coming out with regards to Zak Bagans at the moment, it's not looking particularly great for the Ghost Adventures superstar. And one of the people that has kind of spearheaded this conversation, besides Holly Madison, is a YouTuber and TikToker by the name of Phantomette, as she was one of the women that Zak cheated on Holly with at the time when they were together. Now, Phantomette obviously has come out with a TikTok video expose, you know, telling all about what has gone on. But I wanted to understand and delve a little bit deeper into this scenario to get my full picture of what happened, the timeline of events, and kind of what led to this all coming about, and some of the other things that Phantomette was willing to share. Now, I will, you know, obviously state that there's going to be a trigger warning for this video for anyone who may have experienced things like this. It's, you know, it's not exactly easy to listen to, and it wasn't easy to kind of sit in the interview and ask these questions because, you know, it's an incredibly sensitive topic with regards to, you know, essentially being used. So it is an incredible shame. But this is the interview. The links to Phantomette will be down in the description, to her YouTube, to her TikTok, to her Instagram, as you can keep up to date with her stories. I believe she plans to continue telling her story in the coming months. It's just, you know, these things take a bit of time. So there will be links down in the description below, but here's the interview. So, I mean, we'll go off of what you've said from your TikTok, right? Because, you know, you were comfortable to say that within your TikTok, but you mentioned how you met Zak, obviously, in that video. You caught an EVP from his museum. He got in touch.
I did the nighttime tour. So obviously there's a daytime tour at the museum. The nighttime tour, you can't take videos, but you can take an audio recorder in, which is pretty cool. So I did that, and I captured 2 really good EVPs, and I had posted them a while ago, and I just did like a repost one day, and he responded to it. And I always hear about these like fake Zak pages that go around. So I genuinely like just thought it was that. And then I realized, I was like, wait, that looks like his real page. And then he started just continually messaging me. He was just asking me like personal questions, just like being super friendly. And I was just very shocked and still like, I don't know if it's him. And then he just sent a bunch of voice notes, and then I confirmed it is him. And then that's when he eventually invited me over to the museum. At first, he's like, you want to come to the museum one night? And of course I was like, yes. And then when I was on my way, he told me to meet him at the Black House, which is the house that is next to the museum. That's kind of like a hangout spot / like an extension of the museum. There's a lot of museum stuff in there, I guess you would say.
Right, okay. Interesting. So what was your, like, obviously on TV, he seems like a really sweet guy. He seems, you know, he has like a couple of moments with other co-stars where it's like maybe he's a bit of like, you know, a bit hit or miss or whatever. But ultimately, what did you think of him when he first like reached out to you personally? Like, what was your impression of him?
He was super friendly at first, just very personable. Like I said, asked me like a lot of questions about myself, but like in a nice way. And I would say the first couple times we hung out, I was surprised. I was like, wow, this guy's actually really cool. Like, not the weird kind of personality you would see on TV, just like very normal, which from my experience was only like that in the beginning, which kind of aligns with other people's experience with him, that changes very quickly. It's like one of those like lure you in kind of things, and then it switches. So it didn't last very long for me, along with the red flags, you know, with the other girls. But just he's a strange character.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that you're not the only person to have said that. You know, I've heard from other places and sources and all the rest of it that, you know, it's quite but was there like a specific turning point where it went from like, you know, him being quite personable, quite interested in your life, to kind of like was there a shift essentially?
There was. So the first couple times it was more laid back as far as like the time we would hang out, or just like, hey, come over. Like maybe it was a little earlier in the day, and then later on, I would say it's more of a time slot, which is kind of what we're calling it here. So my time slot would be 10 p.m. Like I knew he would be busy until around 10 p.m. and that's exactly when I would get the text. But I didn't think it was weird because he's a busy guy, multiple businesses, filming stuff on TV. So for me, that wasn't a red flag at first. But, you know, in hindsight, now I'm realizing with lining up other people's schedule that it really seems to be like it was time slots for everyone, and like back to back, like barely overlapping. Because as far as I'm aware, Holly mentioned that she would hang out with him until 10 p.m. And then he would be tired, is what he would say. So she would go home, and then that's when I would be arriving. So it appears that we would barely just miss each other, which explains a lot of weird things now looking back that kind of happened with
That's crazy. So, I mean, that's crazy. That is crazy. Like, if it were me, right, and living that kind of like double life, I would be concerned about the people bumping into each other. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I
you know
mean,
what? I'm kind of thinking that like maybe that's an adrenaline rush kind of thing,
oh,
like
okay, okay,
an
yeah, yeah,
excitement. I really, it must be something like that because that sounds terrifying to me.
yeah. I would be shitting bricks, like if
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? Like, but so I'm going to assume, obviously, that like based off of the information that you've said, you weren't aware that him and Holly were together at the time, right?
No, 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 no. Yeah, a lot of people have come forward and questioned that part. I had no idea. So the only thing I saw is the recent TMZ post from when they did break up, and that was like a
Right.
public thing. TMZ reported about it, and then it appears that he strategically didn't post her at all after that, even when they did get back together. So I had no idea.
Oh wow.
Um, there was really no way for me to know that, and of course, I'm just going by what he's telling me. And then I started getting suspicious. The one thing that caught my eye is, girls kind of like creep around on the internet. And I don't know, I was just curious. And I went to her page and I saw like a photo dump video. And there was a ton of pictures, but one of the pictures had him and her, which I know they were together for a long time. So part of me was like, maybe it's just like a little throwback picture.
Right. Yeah.
But that's when I did ask him because I had enough reason to believe like this could be something weird, and that's when he got really mad. That's the first time I saw he was mad. I remember it was on the phone. I called him and I was nervous to mention it, and it just like it blew up out of proportion. He was
Wow.
not happy. I asked him about that at all. Told me to mind my business, and he was very adamant about saying like they were not together. Like
Wow.
they're not at
Okay.
all.
Wow. Okay. So he was. Okay. Interesting. So he obviously was with her, claiming he wasn't.
Oh yeah.
Was with you. We can only assume was with other people based off of timelines as well.
Yeah, I've lined up some timelines. There's one girl I've spoken to for the past week or so, and her timeline also appeared to overlap mine, but she said she was getting flown in to town. She was from out of town.
Wow.
So that adds a whole nother element. That's a lot going on at once
Yeah.
between, Holly leaving and then me showing up and then somehow this other girl being in that mix plus more, but that's just the ones I can confirm for a fact.
Wow. Okay. And that's an interesting, like, the way that you've obviously put that is a lot of people right now are like, stating this is all alleged, this is just based off of hearsay, but obviously you're saying you've like seen the evidence as fact.
Yeah.
And obviously if someone's getting flown in, there's going to be receipts of that. There's going to be
Pictures,
Yeah.
Parking passes with dates. Everything's solid. Obviously, we can't post any of
Yeah.
that because it's very personal information. But
Yeah.
just know it 100% exists.
Wow. And with regards to, so you mentioned there that you called him up, essentially questioned the photos with Holly, and was that like at what point after that did like you kind of cut ties with Zach, and like, or was there like a specific thing that happened that you like cut ties because of, or was it off the back of that, or what happened there?
After that, I can't remember what the exact thing was. It might have been more posts online or something like that. Because, like I said, I didn't have anything solid, but just intuitively I knew, and there was just little signs. I can't remember exactly, but I want to say it was some kind of like Instagram post, maybe on Holly's page. But it was just enough that I was like, "Look, it looks to be wrong, so I don't want to be involved." And a funny detail is the last time I went there, I wanted to almost like let Holly know, even though I wasn't sure yet. So I was like, what can I do? I was like, I got to plant something here. So I left a very specific looking hair tie that like couldn't be a mistake for someone else's. It had like pearls and everything on it. And I was like, I'm going to hide it in the couch. And like, hopefully she finds it. And she didn't find it. I did ask her. She didn't find it, but it was a good attempt. And from other stories, other girls did leave things around too,
Wow.
kind of the same way.
That's like some girl shit right there. That is like that is some proper girl shit right there. Respect to that. Like, and it's a shame she didn't find it, because it'd be interesting to see how it would have panned out. But obviously, you know, with regards to all of it, like after looking back on in hindsight, like, do you how do you feel about the whole thing? Because obviously, you get hit up by Zak Bagans. That's quite a big deal. He's not exactly like an unknown person. He's probably the most well-known person, especially in, your line of work and stuff, especially like, interest in the paranormal and all the rest of it. So, that must have been obviously exciting at the time. But looking back on it, is there anything where you were like, maybe the red flags were screaming at me, but you kind of overlooked it potentially because of how
Yeah, I would say that definitely he really did cover it well. So either way, it would have been hard, but it really was just like my time period was way less than a lot of the other girls. So for me, it was like a very quick whirlwind of like, this is crazy. Like, how is this happening right now? And add in the element of like, I thought I was special, like
Yeah.
I really didn't think he was hanging out with other girls. And that whole comment of him saying like, this is so wild that we're hanging out. Like, I never do this. The first time we hung out, he had this whole conversation with me, and it felt so genuine.
Yeah.
Like, he's a good actor. I'll tell you that. I'll give you that, Zach. You're a good actor. But yeah, so it really was just like a fever dream. It was just all so weird and fast and just so many different elements. But yeah, looking back, I'm like, man, I guess I should have looked into these things a little bit more, but lesson learned, I guess.
Okay, well that's fair. I mean, this might I don't obviously want to put words in anyone's mouth, but like, do you feel, obviously it might be obvious, but do you feel like misled or manipulated in any way by
Oh yeah.
Zach?
Yeah. I think that's for anyone, no matter who you are, like a female, male, like you shouldn't ever mislead someone to think they're the only person, especially when there's intimacy involved, because that's super unfair. Especially if it's like multiple girls in one day, that just, it feels so nasty. It
Yeah.
feels disgusting. And it's just like, come on, like, get it together, man. Like, it just, yeah, it feels very violating. It does piss me off in that way. Like, emotionally, I don't feel like, oh, I love him. Like, I never felt that way.
Mm.
It was fun. I liked him at the time. But more, I'm just like pissed off.
Yeah,
You
and
fooled me.
yeah, and obviously, like, it's all kind of come out, this whole like cheating scandal and all the rest of it with Zach, and obviously, no one is, from what I've seen at least, is pointing the finger at you, being like, you're to blame, obviously, because Zach was the one, orchestrating all of this behind the scenes. But how does that affect you emotionally? Kind of like knowing you were unknowingly a part of this whole thing that was going on.
Yeah, it's not a good feeling. And I mean, there is people that, I see in the comments here and there that are, it's probably like Ghost Adventures fans, and they will blame me like, you should have, how could you not know? Like, you definitely knew. And I mean, that doesn't bother me too much because I genuinely didn't. Like, there was just no way. If people really put themselves in my shoes, like, they would see that. But yeah, overall, it's just not a great feeling. If anything, I feel bad for Holly more than anything, because I can't imagine, because that's a long-term relationship, and just thinking someone like that
Yeah.
just that screws with your mind a lot. And it's just like another story every single day, like multiple people every day. It's like, how much more can there be at this point? And there's just so much more that we're not even coming out about yet. It gets kind of dark.
Yeah.
It's dark. It's dark stuff.
It is. It is. And, there's all sorts of things coming out, obviously, that just makes the whole situation darker and darker and darker every day. But, I guess ultimately, now that you're speaking out, it's a fantastic thing that you're doing, because a lot of people would be intimidated in your position to speak out, to be public about, because ultimately you're going up against a 10-ton, juggernaut, essentially. Does that worry you in any way?
It did for a while. That's why I never spoke on this. Like, I have so many stories that will, maybe come out over time that are just funny, if anything. But I was always scared to speak out. I mean, I know he's very heavy on the silencing people and just like that intimidation factor, but I don't care anymore. Like, I know what's right and what's wrong and who's right and who's wrong. I did nothing wrong. I feel like I should be allowed to speak my truth without having consequence. So, I don't care anymore. I'm not scared.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
There is things that I still like. I want to speak about that. I do have a little fear about like saying it out on publicly, I guess you would say. But I mean, there's one thing I do want to speak about, and I feel like I need to do it in a way that I don't give out too much details, but it's the part that bothers me the most about all of this, that affected other girls too, as far as I know. But I'm trying to think of the best way to word this without being too graphic or detailed. But during my time with him, there was intimate moments, and there was a time, from my perspective, I saw a phone being held up, and to me, it seemed like I was being recorded. And this is something I always kind of brushed off because I was given an excuse at the time that that's not what was happening. But there is other allegations and stories that align with my experience that make me think that this is a big problem. Right. And that's kind of all I'm going to say about that right now.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. And we won't obviously push that because so obviously I hope that people can see you speaking out, right? As, brave as you are being with it, because like I say, it's no mean feat to kind of come out against someone as big as Zak Bagans. So hopefully other people can see this and, obviously, would you like to see more people kind of like, or are you quite happy to be the only person right now? Or would you like to see more people come out? Or is it just like, if they want to?
If they want to, I hope that they can. Like, I hope they have that confidence to be able to do it and feel safe to do so. Because like I said, a lot of girls still are like, I don't know. They're on the fence, and they do have stories and that they've held in for so long, and that's not a good feeling. So I do hope that more people come out, and I think they will. I do think they will. It seems like there's some people on the fence, and they're just trying to gather their footing and their story to say it in the proper way.
Fair enough. Totally fair. And the last thing I guess I'll ask is, if you don't have to answer this one, obviously, just say no if you don't want to. But if there was one thing you could say to Zak, if you were face to face with him, is there anything that you'd want to say, or would you just rather never interact with him again?
Ooh, yeah, no, I would prefer to never interact with him again or be anywhere in his presence. But I guess the only thing I would say is we want answers.
Ooh, I like answers. That. I like that. That was good. That was good. That was like some proper CIS detective shit right there. Right. Well, that's all the questions that I've got, I think. So is there anything else that you want to say? Anything else that's like you wanted to get out there? Or are you kind of happy with what's happened?
I think that's good for now. Like I said, there is just endless amounts of stories. And I think with time, I think more will come out. So I think we can probably speak again soon and, release some more information if we can,
Yeah, absolutely.
Safely.
Absolutely. Now, what do you guys think of this? Of course, please be respectful and civil, as, it's not easy to come out on an interview to talk about someone who is as well known as Zak Bagans. So please show some respect down in the comments below. I will be moderating it quite heavily because, although some people say that that's heavy censorship, ultimately this person has, put herself in the firing line to kind of, expose the truth, or at least her truth. Over the past 3 to 4 weeks, there's been a lot of allegations that have been made against Zak Bagans, and I have to say, before we get into the video, they are just that at the time of recording, right? They are just allegations, so don't sue me, anybody, right? But there's a lot of comments on a lot of the videos, right, with people kind of talking about why isn't this more mainstream? Obviously, these allegations are incredibly serious with, people coming out and talking about how Zak has been, we all know about him cheating on Holly Madison. Is it right? No. But, that's typical celebrity drama stuff. But the bigger allegations that are being pointed to Zak are the ones that are unverifiable at the time of recording, like I say. And they kind of cite more serious allegations, like the people that he allegedly cheated with. He, quote, allegedly secretly recorded, and one of which was allegedly a minor at the time of Zak asking for, nude images from this person, whilst being well aware that this person was only 15 at the time, and even going as far as to allegedly fly them out to Vegas so that, he can see them. Now, again, allegedly. Everything has to be allegedly right now, because there's like, I got the feeling that there's lawsuits are brewing, and I'm not about to get caught up in this shit. But a lot of people in the comment section of these videos are like, why won't outlets cover this? Like, why is it that it's down to the people to come out? Why can't they, go to the press, for example, like TMZ? Zak Bagans cannot take a shit without TMZ covering it, right? They cover absolutely everything with this guy. They love it. And, it's, ultimately free publicity for him, for Zak, and for Ghost Adventures and all the shows that he does and all the rest of it, right? If you literally just search Zak Bagans, type up the news, the top outlets are TMZ, E-Online, People, all of these places that are basically the same entity, right? They are all covering it. Now, the latest things that they obviously covered was the Holly Madison insinuating that Zak Bagans cheated on her in wild social media posts. But, obviously, there's been a lot more information that's come out off the back of that, and since then, that, would, point to some more serious stuff going on, allegedly. Now, obviously, right now, there's a lot that I think people... There's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it than just going, oh, this is the case. Now, for someone like me, I like to give people that voice, right? Because it's got to be scary, right? Being someone who's trying to speak up against someone who ultimately is a 10-ton, juggernaut in this field. It is the, 100 people versus one gorilla, in the sense that, Zak Bagans has an endless amount of wealth. Right, he's a very rich man, so he can, prolong legal battles, financially drain people if necessary. It's going to be hard to kind of point the finger at someone like Zak and make these kind of allegations and provide the proof and stuff. Now, yes, videos have come out with proof, they will be dropping proof and all the rest of it. And I know that even people like Nick Groff and Tessa Groff have commented on some people's stuff saying, this is true. Here's this is what we kind of know, right? And obviously it's a very serious grey area, but there is a lot of reasons, and this isn't me siding with the news outlets, but there's a lot of reasons as to why these news outlets probably won't touch this story until a drop of evidence actually comes out, all right? And I just want to clear this up for a lot of people, and this isn't me defending Zak in any way either. This isn't me saying that people that have come out to speak against him are lying about it, because I, regardless of my opinions on it, I don't necessarily believe that they are, but they deserve to have the platform to speak, right? They deserve to be able to share what they have experienced, all right, without this, the judgment online or being silenced by someone who is a lot more, financially powerful than them, right? So let's kind of talk about this. So obviously TMZ have covered the cheating allegations from Holly Madison, but let's not forget Holly Madison as well is also a 10-ton juggernaut in her own right. She's got the financial ability and the publicity and the following to go toe-to-toe with someone like Zak Bagans, right? She can withstand that kind of legal storm should Zak want to kind of throw around defamation cases or whatever. But right now, the allegations involving the underage girls and the secret recordings, obviously, they haven't been reported by the mainstream media. And it all comes down to one very simple thing. The distinct lack of any, I want to use this term lightly, credible evidence, okay? And ultimately, that's what these people rely on. It's incredibly difficult to report on this kind of stuff without the evidence. Obviously, it's easy from my position because I can just sit here and say, well, this is what they've allegedly said. Here's the proof of what they've said. Here's what Zak said. Well, not Zak, because he's obviously not spoken up about all of this, but I think the silence is deafening. If it were me and I was being accused of this stuff, you best believe I would be putting out tweets, videos, Instagram stories debunking all of this shit as quickly as it comes out. Like, the second that shit comes out and hits my radar, bang, I'm on it like a rash, right? But obviously with these larger outlets, I mean, TMZ haven't exactly got credible credibility, but at the same time they have to be very, very careful. Now, in the provided sources or broader public reports from reputable outlets like TMZ, Yahoo, Daily Mail, or E! Online, to substantiate claims of Zak Bagans being involved in underage girls or making secret recordings of women during sex, these specific allegations seem to stem from unverified sources, rumours, or potential... I hate the way that this has to be said, but unfortunately, misinformation circulating online, possibly on platforms like X or other social media. But obviously, this is why these larger outlets won't touch it right now, because there is no evidence to back up the claims. Now, does that necessarily mean that these people are lying? No. Does it mean they're telling the truth? Also, possibly not. But at the same time, this is where it gets really difficult and in a really grey area, because, yes, like, huge claims have to come with huge amounts of evidence, okay? And obviously, when I recorded the interview with Phantomette, who was, in my opinion, incredibly brave to kind of speak out in the way that she did, she said she believes that was the case. She hasn't, she has to say that obviously as well to avoid getting sued. But at the same time, there was obviously the girl who was allegedly underage when Zak was asking for pictures and stuff like this. She claimed to have evidence that were with lawyers at the time. Now, whether that is the case, that's by the by. But without that evidence being public information, these people won't touch it. So, I hate the way that it has to be worded for this, because I don't want it to come across like I'm shitting on these people's experiences, because I'm truly not. Like, this could have actually genuinely happened. Zak could be the biggest knobhead on the planet, right, who could have been caught up with underage girls and could have potentially been secretly recording, intimate moments without consent, right, which is very, very serious. But again, with some serious allegations needs to come some serious evidence, and that's the stance that these, reporting outlets will take. So, because of the lack of verifiable evidence, the legal and ethical concerns, their focus on only confirmed stories and rumours versus fact, these people won't touch this evidence or touch these stories, right? So let's talk about the legal and ethical concerns. So allegations involving underage individuals or non-consensual recordings are extremely serious and carry significant legal implications. Reputable outlets are cautious about publishing unverified claims, especially if they could be considered libelous or inflammatory without proof. But at the same time, it's a difficult one, because they could go down the route that I did, where it's alleged, right? This is what this person said, this is what this person said, here's the proof of them saying that. And it gets the story out there. Because if it is true, imagine having someone like TMZ reporting on your story, going against the grain, so to speak, right? That would be incredibly empowering for someone who is probably already quite intimidated to go up against someone like Zak Bagans, okay? Now, it is a tricky grey area. And obviously the rumour versus fact whole thing with, social media rumours, they prioritise stories with concrete details, but at the same time, obviously, it comes into question with, why cover the Holly Madison stuff then? Like, why? Because obviously, Holly Madison posted to her Instagram story saying that she's got the proof, allegedly, of, upwards of 10 women coming forwards who Zak cheated on at the time of them dating. That didn't come with substantiated proof, per se. But they chose to cover that. But when these allegations come out, they choose to not go near it. It's a bit of a weird one, where it's like, pick and choose. They're picking and choosing, cherry picking the information that they want. But again, let's not forget that Zak Bagans and TMZ have got clearly a very close relationship, right? Like, Zach literally can't take a shit without TMZ being like, this was the colour, this was the size, this was the consistency of Zach's shit today. Genuinely, like, they just cover everything and anything. But they won't touch this, which is really odd, in my opinion. And obviously, it is a difficult one, because, I don't know, I hope I've cleared this up for some people. But I'm talking, and I'm getting a lot more questions than I am answers, even to my own, responses. And I'm starting to wonder, well, why did they cover the Holly Madison stuff without verifiable proof, but yet refuse to touch this when this has allegedly no verifiable proof? Which, no, at the time of recording it doesn't, but it fits into the category of allegations, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe it's just far less legally troubling to say Zach allegedly cheated with upwards of 10 women than it is to say some of these women may have been secretly recorded and may have even been underage. I don't know. But at the same time, should that go to the detriment of the people that are being brave enough to speak out? I don't know. I've started this question kind of hoping to answer some questions, and I'm leaving it with a lot more questions than I am answers, and probably answers that I'll never get, unfortunately. But I hope this makes a little bit of sense on the grey areas of why these news outlets won't touch it. But, as things come to me and as I vet it and, prove that this can be... I've had a lot of people come to me, let's put it this way, right? Some of which is, that there's substance to it, but people want to remain anonymous, so it's a very difficult area. Some people have come to me with stories, and I'm not going to shit on anyone's story because it could be true, but they've lacked the distinct evidence to be able to back up the story, which means I'm not going to either go for it, because at the same time, I'm not about to start spreading rumours, but I will do it if there is... I guess I'm just as bad. I'm talking and I'm like, yeah, clearly I'm just as bad as TMZ now. But, let's have a discussion down in the comments. What do you think of this? Is this a very legally grey area? Do you think that these outlets should be doing more? Or do you think that what they're doing is right and they should just kind of steer clear? Let me know what you think. Let me know down in the comments below. While you're down there, jump to get the hell out of that like button and subscribe. And until next time, I'll speak to you later. Peace.